So let me just briefly correct the record by giving the accurate top 10 list. But so that's their list. My list would be this. The Ringer has compiled a list of the 101 best movie performances of the 21st century. Not much of a transition here. We're just diving into movie performances. And we all know that making lists and ranking stuff is one of the great American pastimes. It's one of our favorite things to do. It's hard to turn down the allure of an arbitrary list where we argue about whether one thing is better than another, even though there's no real objective way to measure it. So, and I don't mean that to be critical, by the way. I'm a big fan of making lists. I'm all about it. So we're not going to go through all 101, but let's take a look at the Ringer's top 10 performances of the 21st century. And anytime you see a list like this, you expect it to be terrible, but let's see what they come up with. Going from 10 to 1, 10 is Kirsten Dunst in Melancholia, 9 is Joaquin Phoenix in The Master, 8 is Jesse Eisenberg in Social Network, 7, Denzel Washington in Training Day, 6, Heath Ledger in Dark Knight, 5, Javier Bardem in No Country for Old Men, 4, Cate Blanchett in Tar, 3, Philip Seymour Hoffman in The Master, 2, Daniel Day-Lewis, There Will Be Blood, and then 1 is Naomi Watts in Mulholland Drive. Well, I have to say, it's not a terrible list. Not great, really, but it's certainly not exactly right, but it's not terrible. And I can't really say for certain that Naomi Watts doesn't belong in the top spot because, to be honest, admittedly, that's the one movie on the list that I haven't seen. But even so, I feel very confident when I say that Daniel Day-Lewis should be number one. His performance in There Will Be Blood is just it's a towering artistic achievement. It's one of the great film performances of all time. I mean, it's competing not just against 21st century performances, competing against De Niro in Raging Bull and Marlon Brando on The Waterfront, Al Pacino in Godfather 2. Like it's in that pantheon. So that should be number one. I don't think Denzel or Jesse Eisenberg belong in the top 10. Both are good films, very good performances, not top 10. I actually like Tar a lot more than I thought I would. I do think Blanchett's performance was tremendous. I wouldn't put her in the top 10. And Philip Seymour Hoffman and Joaquin Phoenix certainly do belong in the top 10, but I think The Ringer picked the wrong movies for them. So let me just briefly correct the record by giving the accurate top 10 list. And I spent about 45 seconds coming up with this list, so maybe if I think more about it, I'll change my mind. But so that's their list. My list would be this. Top 10 screen performances of this century. Number one, as already established, Daniel Day-Lewis, There Will Be Blood. As I said, one of the great, all-time great performances, just a work of art. 2, I'd put Philip Seymour Hoffman. He was brilliant in The Master, but I think his performance in Capote was on a level even above that one. It's one of the most nuanced and layered performances you'll ever see in a movie. And I know I sound like a pretentious douchebag saying that. It was so new. It was a nuanced and layered performance, but it was. It was. And in this, I don't even say this is a joke, but he's able in that movie. He puts on. He's playing Truman Capote. He puts on this effeminate sort of accent, and it's a little jarring when you first hear it, especially given if you know what the actor really sounds like. But then you believe it, and he's able to put on this performance in that kind of like silly voice, and that's a real achievement. Number 3, I'd say Javier Bardem in No Country for Old Men. I think The Ringer was right to rank, and this was controversial, but they ranked Javier Bardem above Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight. I do think Heath Ledger's performance was great and iconic, even if the film that he was in is one of the most overrated things ever to exist on the planet, The Dark Knight. But Javier Bardem in No Country is superior. I mean, Anton Chigurh, the character he plays in that film, is the most menacing and interesting, I think, movie villain of this century, probably in the history of cinema. Heath Ledger's Joker is more animated, more outlandish, more attention-grabbing in some ways, but he never created the tension that Bardem creates in that role. I mean, just the scene at the gas station, and if you've never seen No Country for Old Men, how dare you? If you've never seen it, just the scene at the gas station is worth the price of admission. It's like a 3-minute scene, and it's a masterclass in building tension and suspense. One of the best movie scenes of all time, probably, and Heath Ledger never quite touches that performance. Number 4, I'd probably say Ryan Gosling should be on the list. by all rights. Probably his role in Blue Valentine should be. It was a absolutely fantastic performance. I hated the movie because it's just too dark and bleak and depressing. Like, it's one of the movies you'll walk away from it, you'll be depressed for the next 3.5 weeks from watching it. And so it's sort of artistically impressive, but I would never watch it again. And I kind of wish I never saw it the first time. But it's a great performance. So maybe that role, or First Man. You know, I think First Man is one of the most underrated films of the century, and that performance as well. So that'd be number 4. Number 5, I'd say Joaquin Phoenix has to be on the list. Probably, he was great in The Master, but I'd probably put his performance in the movie Her, which, if you've never seen that one, especially now with AI, this movie came out, I don't know, 10 or 12 years ago, but it's a quite a prescient movie now, because he plays a guy who falls in love with essentially AI. He falls in love with an operating system. He falls in love with Siri, basically. And so he's acting against this disembodied voice the entire time. He's walking around throughout the movie, and he's got the earpiece in, and he's talking basically to himself, but talking to the operating system. And you see him like fall in love with this computer, and he pulls it off. It's very believable. Number 6, I think J.K. Simmons in Whiplash should have been on the list. I watched that movie again recently. All I can say is that if you haven't seen Whiplash, it's a movie about a drummer in a jazz band. And I hate jazz. I can't stand it. I think it's the second worst genre of music, second only to mariachi music. And I don't care about drumming, really. And yet the film is mesmerizing. I mean, it's like an edge of your seat. It's a film about a drummer in a jazz band, and it's an edge of your seat thriller, really. And that's thanks in large part to Simmons' performance. Number 7, I'd say Heath Ledger in Dark Knight. I'd put him there. Number 8, Russell Crowe. Probably Russell Crowe in Gladiator. It's 2000, I think. So I guess that counts as this century. And then 9 and 10. 9, I'd probably say Jim Carrey in Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I think it was a great film of this century. Jim Carrey is an annoying leftist who only does Sonic movies now. But what makes that so, especially, and I got a lot of trouble for making fun of the Sonic movie, which is just god awful. But one of the things that annoyed me watching that movie is like, this is what Jim Carrey has become. He's actually a great actor. He's a great artist, but this is what he does now. And you see it in that movie. And then finally, number 10, I'd say, Hugh Jackman in Prisoners. He plays a desperate father trying to find his daughter who's been kidnapped. Fully embodies the role. You absolutely believe it the whole way through, and it's a great performance. So that's my list. That's the real top 10. That's the correct arbitrary list, and that's all there is to it. If you'd like to see what else I have to say, you can access my full show by going to dailywire.com or by going to the Matt Walsh Show Twitter page. Hope to see you there. Godspeed.